What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be testing out the new exotic raid weapon for the Wrath of the Machine raid, the Outbreak Prime pulse rifle, against the old school big bad fallen boss, Skolas, in Skolas' Revenge. Now, the reason we're doing this is firstly just for curiosity's sake. I'm sure you guys are interested in knowing how the Outbreak performs against the other big bad fallen boss. But secondly, the way level advantages work in Destiny, you really don't get any sort of advantage once you get to the same level as an enemy and beyond. So if Skolas' Revenge ever is updated into the current light level, this is actually going to give us a pretty fair representation of how the Outbreak would perform. So guys, if you enjoy this video, please remember to support it. It really helps me out. And let's get started with how the Outbreak does in Skolas' Revenge with round 1. Now, with Skolas' Revenge, there actually is going to be 5 rounds and then a special round against Skolas himself. The first 5 rounds are always going to be the same, against the same enemies with the same modifiers, with the last round against Skolas actually having different modifiers based on the week. Round number 1 has the exposure modifier, making you have much more shields but recharging extremely slow, and the brawler modifier, making your melees do much more damage, and it's against the Hive. The Outbreak is perfectly above average in this encounter. You're really just fighting Hive for the entire round 1. You don't have any objectives to worry about, and the Outbreak is just going to be, better than most other pulse rifles when it comes to killing ads. And so, again, therefore, it's perfectly above average, doing exactly what you'd expect it to do. Now, the reason the Outbreak Prime is above average when compared to other pulse rifles is due to its exotic perks. Firstly, it has the perk The Corruption Spreads. This means that firing multiple bursts, 4 bursts to be precise, will trigger Siva nanites to spawn and damage that enemy even more, making it great against DPSing bosses. It also has the other exotic perk, Virulence. This perk makes it so that when you get a precision kill with the Outbreak, it's going to also trigger those Siva nanites to spawn and damage any other nearby enemies. The 2 modifiers really don't have any effect on this gun whatsoever. So let's just move on to wave number 2, where things get a lot more interesting. Wave 2 features the modifiers Grounded, meaning you take more damage when you're in the air, and Airborne, meaning you do more damage when you're in the air. That is a pretty evil combination, to be quite honest. Wave number 2 is also against the Vex. Now, the reason the Outbreak gets a lot more interesting in wave number 2 is, well, firstly, the Outbreak is definitely, with all things considered, still above average against the Vex when compared to other primaries. However, the Vex do have a mechanic so that if you shoot them in the precision hit spot and you don't kill them right away, they will actually hunker down and hide that precision hit area, so you can no longer get a precision kill on them, which you're obviously trying to do with the Outbreak Prime to trigger those nanite swarms. So that is definitely a downside. There's a lot of times when you're using the Outbreak against the Vex that you have to kill the enemy because they're still shooting at you, but you literally can't get precision kills on them, and that is quite annoying. On the flip side of the coin, the Outbreak Prime is magnificent against Minotaurs. Minotaurs don't have any critical hit spot, and so most primaries aren't going to be great against them. But with the Outbreak Prime, you actually will be able to trigger Corruption Spreads by shooting the Minotaur 4 times and do extra damage because of it, basically making your own precision spot. Now, the other really cool thing about using the Outbreak Prime in Wave 2 and Skolas' Revenge in general is that it does bonus damage against the Fallen. And you may be thinking, well, yes, of course, that's good, but you're fighting Vex. That doesn't really come up. Well, it actually does, because during Wave 2, you actually have mines that you have to destroy. and these mines actually count as fallen enemies. So you're going to be able to do massively more damage with the Outbreak Prime than you would with any normal primary. This is combined with the fact that you can trigger the corruption spreads against these mines. So these mines, with the Outbreak Prime, you can take down extremely easily. You can actually take down an entire mine in less than one full magazine. Other primaries don't do anywhere near as much damage against them. Now moving on, Wave 3 features the modifiers Catapult, which makes your grenade recharge much faster, and Arc Burn, meaning that arc weapons do significantly more damage. Now of course, yet again in this round, the Outbreak is going to be better than most other primaries, however, with the one big exception of the Xylo Supercell. Because the Supercell deals arc damage, it's actually the only elemental damage dealing primary in all of the infusible weapons. You're getting a big disadvantage for using the Outbreak when you could be using the Supercell. Because of course the Supercell, it deals arc damage, you have Arc Burn on as a modifier, so it's going to be out damaging by a huge amount the Outbreak Prime. Thankfully, however, because it is Arc Burn against the Cabal, you aren't really taking a ton of incoming damage. The only thing you really have to worry about is the big Scion melees, where they create an electric surge out in front of them. That does do arc damage, and it does a lot of damage in this wave. So let's move it on to wave number 4. This wave features the modifiers Juggler, which makes it so that no ammo drops for whatever your current equipped weapon is, and Specialist, meaning that your special weapon does a lot more damage. Now I'm sure some of you are thinking that the Outbreak isn't going to be that good in this wave. Heck, it's Specialist for a modifier. Your special weapon is what you should be using, right? And you're kind of right, your special weapon does do a lot more damage. You should of course be whipping out your shotgun or your sniper to take down any powerful enemies. But because of Juggler, you're obviously going to have to switch off of your special weapon to get more ammo. You need to be using your primary to get special and heavy ammo drops. It literally will not drop for your special weapon when you're actually using that weapon. And so having a backup primary that you're going to have to again switch to regardless to get ammo, that is doing so well, which the Outbreak is doing in this wave, is phenomenal. The Outbreak, of course, it's just going to be above average when compared to other primaries. I keep saying that, but it keeps still being true. And you finally get to actually verse the Fallen. So you get a noticeable damage increase when using the Outbreak, again, especially compared to any other pulse rifles. Forget about the Siva nanites, which are going to, of course, outdamage everything, but just based on shooting enemies directly and getting precision shots, this is going to, just based on that factor, because of the extra fallen damage, outpace other primaries. So the Outbreak is actually perfect for this encounter. You're not facing a boss, so you really don't need to use like a sniper rifle, I don't think, in this encounter. So you can go ham with a fusion rifle or a shotgun, take down fallen captains extremely fast with the specialist perk, and then switch to your Outbreak, mop up a bunch of simple enemies, shanks, dregs, vandals, etc., grab the ammo, and rinse and repeat. Additionally, the objective for this wave is killing the VIP before they reach a certain point, and the Outbreak absolutely melts the VIP if you, for whatever reason, don't want to use your special weapon. Alright, now moving on. If you thought the Outbreak was good before, the next two waves are really where it's going to shine. Wave number 5 features the modifiers Trickle, which makes your abilities recharge much slower, and, yep, Small Arms, meaning that your primary weapon is going to do significantly more damage. And wave number 5 is actually going to be a boss fight against the Pilot Servitor. And so all three of us went absolutely ham with our Outbreak Primes and killed the poor Pilot Servitor so damn fast. The time actually said just over a minute, and that's including the cutscene at the beginning. So we absolutely melted this Pilot Servitor. Remember, you're always going to get small arms on this part, so the Outbreak Oh my goodness, it is so damn good. And in case you're wondering exactly how much damage we were doing against the pilot servitor, I did the math. With a normal precision shot, I was most commonly getting 1,040 damage, and that has contributed to 32 of the rounds of the Outbreak Prime. Now, the other 4 rounds, for whatever reason, deal bonus damage, 1,586 to be precise. The Outbreak Prime seems to have kind of a sign of 4 perk, like on the Steel Medulla, automatically built in. This means that there was 39,620 damage just based on precision shots in one magazine of the Outbreak Prime. Now that is of course accompanied by the nanite damage, and the nanites were doing 236 damage per nanite. And there's 42 nanites generated in total for one magazine of Outbreak Prime. And that means 9,912, almost 10,000 damage were dedicated to just the nanites. And that brings us to a total of nearly 50,000 damage, 49,532 damage for one magazine against the pilot servitor. And moving on, we have the final round against Skolas himself. And the first week we did this, remember the modifiers change every week, we had, small arms and light switch, meaning that minions of the darkness deal more melee damage. And we absolutely melted Skolas. I couldn't believe how fast we killed him with outbreaks. Like, this was basically akin to when there was the elemental burns against Skolas and you went in there with the Galahorn with solar burn and melted him so fast. Like, before he could even trigger anything, you just melted him. The outbreak was basically like that, melted him about as fast as solar burn Galahorns. That is how insane this gun is. Like, I could not believe it. Now, for the actual damage numbers, we were able to do 1,080 damage for a normal precision shot and 1,619 for a special precision shot. That adds up to a total of 41,036 damage just with precision hits. We then have the nanites, which were dealing the same damage with 236 damage per nanite, so that brings us to a total of 50,948 damage for one magazine of the outbreak against Skolas with small arms. Now, of course, that is with small arms, and I thought, well, that's a little unfair, so I make a whole video and it's just for one random week that it can spawn with. So I actually waited until the next week, went back and attacked Skolas again without small arms. So this time we had the modifiers Brawler and Juggler, much less exciting. But we were still able to melt Skolas extremely fast. Now, to begin to start damaging Skolas, you will actually have to kill one of the glowing servitors off to the right or left side of this arena first, and that's going to weaken the servitor bonds and actually allow you to do decent damage to him. And if you don't do enough damage, you're going to have to go and kill another one of those servitors and do the same thing. But every single time with the outbreak, we were more than able to do so much damage that it completely went to the next mechanic and we did not have to kill any more than that initial servitor. Without the small arms bonus, we were doing 540 damage for a normal precision shot, exactly half of the small arms damage shot, and 810 damage for the special precision shots. That led to a total of 20,520 damage for just precision shots with one magazine of Outbreak Prime. And the nanites, very interestingly, and I didn't really expect this, were still doing 236 damage per nanite. So that means that the nanites are not impacted at all by the small arms bonus, and I actually didn't know that. And actually, that is a really surprising number. 236 damage still, and you're doing 540 damage for a normal precision shot. So you're basically doing almost half the damage of a precision shot with just one nanite. Like, that's insane. So the nanites were still doing 9,912 damage, leading to a total of 30,432 damage for one magazine of the Outbreak Prime against Skolas with no damage increasing modifiers. So, there you have it. Against the other big fallen activity in Destiny, the Outbreak Prime is phenomenal. And if they ever do update this activity and keep the modifiers the same, and it's a week with small arms, oh my goodness, watch out. The Outbreak absolutely melts through the last two, what are supposed to be the hardest rounds. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting. If you did, again, please remember to help me out by simply rating, commenting, and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny content from me, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified of new uploads, make sure to click the bell beside subscribe. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKakis. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.